Number 1, Aston Martin DB5 Goldfinger 1964. The DB5 is the James Bond car, the one everyone thinks of first. Sean Connery rolled it out in Goldfinger, loaded with gadgets straight from Q Branch, revolving license plates, bulletproof shield, oil slick sprayer, machine guns, and the now iconic ejector seat. Underneath the gadgets, it was a real beast for its day. A 4.0-litre inline-six, making 282 horsepower, good for 0 to 60 in about 7 seconds, fast in the mid-60s. The DB5 wasn't just a car in Bond, it was a character, coming back again in Thunderball and No Time to Die. It's the most famous movie car ever built. Number 2, Aston Martin DBS, on Her Majesty's Secret Service, 1969. George Lazenby's one-time outing as Bond gave us the Aston Martin DBS, a car often overshadowed by the DB5, but it deserves its flowers. The DBS represented a major shift in Aston's design language: sharper lines, a wider stance, and a more modern, almost American muscle-influenced look compared to the curvy DB series. Under the hood, it packed the same 4.0-litre inline-six from the DB6, around 280 horsepower. Not earth-shattering, but enough for a GT that could cruise Europe at high speed in total style. What makes the DBS so important in Bond history isn't gadgets. It had none. Instead, it fit the tone of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, a darker, more grounded story where Bond wasn't saved by tech, but by grit. The final scene, with Bond cradling his wife Tracy in the blood-red interior of the DBS, is one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the franchise. This car might not fire missiles, but it carried the most emotional weight of any Bond car ever. Number 3, Aston Martin V8 Vantage, The Living Daylights, 1987. Timothy Dalton's Bond drove what fans call the most British muscle car ever. The Aston Martin V8 Vantage, known in the film as the V8 Volante, came armed with gadgets again. Rockets, lasers, tyre spikes, and even skis that popped out for a snow chase. In real life, the V8 packed a 5.3-litre engine with around 380 horsepower, serious grunt for the late 80s. This was Aston's answer to American muscle cars, but dressed in a Savile Row suit. It was pure power with Bond flair, and fans still rank it as one of the coolest 007 rides. Number 4, Aston Martin V12 Vanquish, Die Another Day, 2002. Pierce Brosnan's final Bond gave us the V12 Vanquish, nicknamed the Vanish in the movie thanks to its absurd cloaking device. Over the top? Absolutely, but unforgettable. The real Vanquish used a 5.9-litre V12 making 460 horsepower with a 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. It was Aston's flagship at the time, dripping with early 2000s exotic vibes. Critics hated the invisible car gimmick, but the Vanquish itself became a Bond legend, sleek, aggressive, and unmistakably Aston. Number 5, Aston Martin DBS 512 Casino Royale, 2006. Daniel Craig's Bond reboot needed a car that matched his raw, brutal take on 007. Enter the Aston Martin DBS. It wasn't loaded with gadgets, just defibrillators and medical kits in the glove box, but it was all about presence. Powered by a 6.0-litre V12 with 510 horsepower, the DBS hit 191 miles per hour and screamed performance. It also gave us one of the craziest stunts in Bond history, a 7-roll crash in Casino Royale that set a world record. This car became the modern Bond icon, sleek but dangerous. Number 6, Aston Martin DB10 Spectre, 2015. For Spectre, Aston built the DB10 specifically for the movie. Only 10 units were made, and they weren't sold to the public. The DB10 previewed the design language that would later show up in the DB11 and Vantage. In the film, it came loaded with flamethrowers, an ejection seat, and machine guns. Classic Bond gadgetry updated for the modern era. Under the skin, it used a V8 Vantage chassis with a 4.7-litre V8 engine, but its true value was being a one-off Bond exclusive. Fans consider it a modern successor to the DB5 in terms of pure Bond identity. Number 7. Aston Martin DB11, No Time to Die, 2021. The DB11 marked Aston's big step into the modern era, and giving it to Daniel Craig's Bond was symbolic. This wasn't a car dripping with gadgets like the DB5 or DB10. It was about refinement, excess horsepower, and Bond's ability to blend luxury with lethal intent. Powered by a twin-turbocharged 5.2-litre V12, the DB11 made 600 horsepower and hit over 200 miles per hour, a true grand tourer that could outrun almost anything on the road. Bond's use of the DB11 in No Time to Die wasn't about flashy stunts, it was about presence. Craig's Bond had matured, and so had his car. Instead of gimmicks, you got pure Aston engineering at its peak. A long hood, a sweeping profile, and that unmistakable grille. The DB11 proved that Bond doesn't always need machine guns in the headlights to make a statement. Sometimes sheer speed and style are the deadliest gadgets of all. Number 8. Aston Martin Valhalla, No Time to Die, 2021. The Valhalla's cameo in No Time to Die was short, but it was loaded with symbolism. Aston Martin put the car in the film before it was even finished in real life, because this was the brand's future. A mid-engined hypercar developed with Red Bull Racing, promising over 1,000 horsepower from a hybrid twin-turbo V6 paired with electric motors. For Bond, the Valhalla is the next frontier. Just as the DB5 defined the 1960s Bond and the DBS defined the modern reboot, the Valhalla teases a Bond who will have to evolve with electrification and hybrid tech. Imagine future 007 chases where instant electric torque launches him into action, with silence being the ultimate stealth gadget. The Valhalla represents both Aston Martin's gamble to stay relevant in the hypercar era and Bond's ability to adapt no matter how the automotive world changes. Even though it barely rolled across the screen, it was a promise. The Bond car of the future will be just as deadly, only cleaner and faster. Number 9. Aston Martin Fifth 8 Vantage. Return in No Time to Die, 2021. When Daniel Craig pulled the cover off the Aston Martin Viv 8 Vantage in No Time to Die, it was more than just fan service. It was a bridge across eras. This was the same shark-nosed, broad-shouldered coupe Timothy Dalton drove in The Living Daylights. Bringing it back was a nod to Bond's legacy and a reminder that even in 2021, this 1980s bruiser still looks menacing. The V8 Vantage in real life was nicknamed the British muscle car for good reason. With a 5.3-litre V8 pumping out close to 380 horsepower, it had the grunt to match its aggressive looks. For the film, Aston updated the car's presence but left its spirit intact. Black paint, imposing stance, and that unmistakable profile. In the movie, it wasn't loaded with gadgets like Dalton's rocket-equipped version, but its reappearance said everything. Bond doesn't forget his roots. The return of the V8 was like seeing an old ally step back onto the battlefield, reminding audiences that the Bond legacy is built as much on cars as it is on martinis and tuxedos. Now, if you want to see how another movie franchise turned cars into legends, go watch every legendary Fast and Furious car explained in detail. Because if Bond made Aston Martin immortal, Fast and Furious did the same for JDM, muscle and supercars, just with way more NOS. See ya.